May I have about 6 minutes of your time before we go back to class to say thanks and congratulations. You're part of the most nonprofit intensive place on the planet. You're surrounded by rivals. And part of this day is to make friends out of those rivals. So I hope you had a time to talk with some people who are in the same boat you're in. It certainly feels that way sitting with the board chairs over here. They all feel like they're in a boat. It's rather small. Waves a little choppy. Not quite permanent whitewater, but they told me the recession's over, so all's good in nonprofit land, right? I'm Dave Welbourn. I'm the president and CEO of ECCF, and a very proud member of this small staff that does all this work on behalf of nonprofits. ECCF is growing like a weed, as someone was saying the other day, because you are so intent on doing a good job of what you do. And you're so intent on learning and making these organizations stronger. And you're so intent on changing life as we know it in Essex County, maybe in this planet, that you've kept us really busy. The Community Foundation exists for two reasons: to promote philanthropy and to strengthen nonprofits. It's two sides of the same coin, or the same mission. And I'm happy to report that the $1 billion that people in Essex County are going to give away this year will be roughly an all-time record, as we will do nationally. Realize that the people who live in this county are going to write checks and transfer stock and put dollars in collection plates and things like that, and bid on things at auctions to the tune of a little over $1 billion this year, just here. The larger question is, are you getting your share of that? We're on page 170 in your playbook if you want to follow along. I do want to remind you that at one of these conferences a couple years ago, you asked for recycling, so now you have to do it. And the recycling bins are all around you, and recycling even includes your name badges. Drop them off in the lobby when you're on the way out. So Essex County is becoming greener. You know, there's a group of students in Andover and Manchester and Gloucester and several other school districts around the county now who are working on recycling in their cafeterias. Some of the elementary schools in Andover are almost down to zero waste with fifth graders picking stuff up, and it's remarkable. We're building green schools. People are actually using the greenness of a school as a way to get through the Prop 2.5 mill, because a town's more likely to vote for the override if it knows that the school is not just green, but it's going to be cheaper to run in the long run. So we're seeing signs of environmental stuff actually causing other good things to happen. It's pretty great. It is also true that global warming is on the horizon. And Essex County, since its coastline is 500 miles long, is not immune. So there's another thing for us all to work on. The Center for Nonprofit Excellence is something that's unique in New England. It's a creation of all these programs that you've asked us to do, many of which you've created yourself with your ideas. I mean, the Institute for Trustees was a random suggestion by an executive director 6 years ago. We should have a conversation for trustees. Well, here it is, 400 people again. Since that moment, we've touched 10,000 trustees in this county. That's only half of them, incidentally. There are 20,000 of you. So don't feel lonely. And there are a whole bunch of those people who are timing out all the time. So while you aren't recruiting them for your board, I don't know. But that's the best source of new trustees, is people who've just timed out. Don't forget. Don't let them have too much time off. Nobody's going to give you time off. So the Center for Nonprofit Excellence is a pretty comprehensive look at all the things that nonprofits need to flourish, and we hope you will watch for it and follow it on the website and keep coming to more things. And You have on your computers at home or on your tablet that's with you the evaluation forms for today. Help us keep making this fresher. Help this be the best possible conference. We know it's the best of its kind in New England. We don't even know what people in the other parts of the country are doing, but I would like to come up here next year and brag that it's the best in the world. So you have to send in all your improvements and tell us how to make this even better. 1 out of every 413 Americans lives in this county. I don't know whether that's a big number or a small number. Seriously. You probably got 413 friends. If you're the only one here, that's fine. Here's a question that we're starting to hear more and more from our constituents, from all the people we talk to. How do you know that the charities you support are using your gifts effectively? Donor says to a donor. So as you strengthen your board, you're winning the confidence of your donors. As you run well, as you have command of your finances, as you're productive, as you report well in your communications to people around the county, you're answering this question. But believe me, people are asking it. And there's so much giving going on around us, it's very easy for people to lose track of what becomes of it. Talk to your donors, not just during fundraising time. The most effective fundraising tool in many cases is a letter off-season saying, thanks for that gift, here's what we're doing with it, in the middle of March or whatever. So, once in a while I get one of those as a private citizen. And because it's so rare, it has quite an impact. Amazing what thank yous will do. Essex County has 750,000 people. And it's a unique place. I know that's an overused word, but it's unique in that it has a set of attributes that add up to something that's different from the other 3,139 counties in the country. There are very few counties that have lighthouses and a ski area. Only 11 of them. So just because we have Bradford makes us really special, right? There are, generally speaking, in Essex County, we're a little bit older than other places. We're actually aging faster than any county in New England. And it's for a really good reason. It's because compared to Maine or the South Shore or the Cape or the Berkshires or any other places, we don't want to go to Florida. We'd rather be here. Strange, isn't it? I know none of you believe that because we should all be in Florida right now. This is why the Institute for Trustees is such a big success, incidentally, because we schedule it for a Saturday late in March. The skiing is starting to deteriorate. You cannot garden yet. It's cold and gray outside. Little kids' soccer hasn't started. The golf courses aren't open. What are you going to do? Come be a trustee. So, on average, in Massachusetts, we're slightly above average, and nationally, we're even farther above average in these things. Proportion of us that's over 65, that's white, that has a bachelor's degree. The proportion of us that's foreign born. Almost 20% of the people who live in this county, of this 750,000 people, were born outside the United States. The proportion of us who have, English as a second language is above average. Median household income is significantly above average. It's a whole standard deviation above the national average. Put these things together and it means we've got a unique role for nonprofits right here. In Essex County, we've got some really serious needs, some high needs, gangs, poverty, issues around the integration of immigrants into society successfully, some environmental challenges, all these things. There's some intransigent, intractable serious needs that we have. And we also have, on the other hand, if I don't drop the microphone, great resources. Above average income and education, rate of volunteering, and all that stuff. So we have the opportunity here, just in the nonprofit sector, to be different and better by matching those two things. Sorry, I can't hold up both arms at once or you can't hear me. To match those things, to do the things that we all do in our organizations and change the world. A rare opportunity here. You can think of other counties around the country that have that, the good suburban counties that have city problems and suburban resources. But here, we're so much farther along in a lot of that stuff because we've been at it for 400 years. We're also above average in people per square mile. 1,400 and some people live in every square mile here. And yet we have square miles with 7,000 people in them, and we have square miles with nobody in them. Nonprofits per capita. I've already discussed that. There might even be too many nonprofits. Is that possible? I think every town has to have an ed fund and a hunger organization and a land trust. So multiply everything by 34 and you come up with 2,500. Our length of commute is above average. Our rate of alcoholism is above average. And we have a whole bunch of national firsts. You know about the fried clam, and I've talked about the CT scanner before. We have more Pulitzer novelists per capita than any county, too. So you could statistic yourself to death, but you could also win a lot of bets in bars with these facts. One of the questions that is front and center at the Community Foundation now, which our board will be discussing at its advance. Remember, when you have a board meeting, it's not a retreat, it's an advance when you're planning. It better be. One of the chief topics will be, what are the bigger issues? What are the issues that are bigger than any of us or all of us combined that we might think about? That if we put all our heads together and all our resources together, we could change. Can this big sector of thinkers and doers influence something that's bigger than all of us? Good question. We want your suggestions, your ideas, your crusades. Let's see if we can raise the visibility of philanthropy and of this whole nonprofit sector in a common cause. Doesn't mean we all have to march in lockstep and we've still got all our regular work to do. But maybe there's something that we as motivators and community leaders should tackle. I don't know what that is, but a tide that threatens us all might be it. Tragabixanda is a word I want you to learn. Tragabixanda. That's what Essex County used to be called. About 8 or 9 weeks from now, in middle of May, 400 years ago, in 1614, John Cabot, whose real name was Giovanni Cavatto, sailed up the coast here, sailing up west, not down east, sailed up the coast here and mapped every nook and cranny in our coastline. Champlain had done it a few years before, but this is the first really good map we got of Manchester Harbor and the river, the estuaries in Danvers, and the locations of the sandbars off Plum Island and so on. And as he was sailing down here, he thought, I'm going to give this place a name. And each bay was named for a sailor or one of his sponsors or the Duke of this or that. And he named this region Tragabixanda because that was the name of his Moroccan slave. History organizations, go look this up, I dare you. We're about to go into a season where we have a whole bunch of 400th anniversaries to celebrate here. Gloucester's 400th is near. Beverly and Salem 400th is near. A whole bunch of them. 400 years. So maybe the answer to something like this is what we're starting to rumble about at the Community Foundation, a 5th century fund. Doesn't that have a nice ring to it? Happy 5th century. You know all of this already. We are 16% of the economy. When you go out fundraising or recruiting board members or talking with people about how important your organization is, you're not a small organization. You're part of a huge movement. Change your mindset about those things. It's not that you're tiny and you want mind share. It's that you're part of something that is a dominant force in our society here. And we've got more of it, better, more effective than almost any place in the world. Here's another one. We're a reasonably prosperous society, aren't we? There are 5,058 at the last count houses in this county valued at $1 million or more. You know where you are. It's interesting to look at a map of it. Dots all over the place, but sometimes there's a little line with a street with a whole bunch of them on it. This question's becoming more frequent. The hunger organizations here are doing a marvelous job. We feed thousands of people every meal. We rise up and feed all the young children who get school lunches subsidized by the government during school and go home for the summer and spend the whole summer hungry. We, collectively, are feeding them when the schools and the government aren't in the summer. That's what nonprofits do. Is there stuff that the public sector isn't doing and the private sector doesn't even think about? Count us in. But the question that's arising that changes the way we think about our work here is, okay, I can feed a family a good dinner this evening in my town, in my small soup kitchen or food pantry, but that just might be only a Band-Aid. What's that have to do with curing hunger? So we're saving lives on a daily basis and opening up young minds to be able to learn because they're not starving to death in class. And those are all good things. But how do we put hunger organizations and affordable housing organizations and job creation organizations and education and family supports and parenting classes and all that stuff that we all do together so that we don't have hungry people? Children's Hospital Boston has a great slogan. It says, "Until every child is well." What's our answer to that? You know, it's a goal that we will never get to, but on the way we'll do a hell of a lot of good, and much more than we would without a big question like that in our frontal lobes. Some stuff recently that illustrates how things are going. ECCF convened about a month ago the first Funders Summit that we've done. About a dozen heads of the major foundations that grant here. Not all of them are located here, some from Boston and other places that are generous in Essex County. Collectively, they represent about $13 million, $12 million a year in giving in Essex County. And one of the questions that they had was, we didn't know about each other. What should we be doing together? It's the same question we ask you every time we meet. If you're there with a bunch of ed funds or hunger organizations or whoever, all the libraries, what could we do together that we can't do apart? So if the funders are saying that, then there's an opportunity for you to look for options or opportunities to have collaborative projects. How do you put several different organizations that are relevant to poverty in a particular town together? Hi, Dave. And make something different and better and more compelling to funders? Our chief discovery was that they kind of like doing this stuff together. So maybe there's a way to make 1 + 1 = 5, not 3, maybe 7. Progress in education. Lots of new investment in technology in the schools in Lynn. The ed funds are all growing, at least all the ones that we know are growing. talking with Maggie Rosa today about the Gloucester Ed Fund and the fact that in its short 8 years, it's up to $3 million of impact in the schools there now. And Ed Fund's a great thing to be involved in. This is for all your volunteer spare time when you're not gainfully employed and on your board. Teacher awards in Amesbury. The Ed Fund in Amesbury is honoring best teachers as a way to encourage everybody to do their best. In Lawrence, there are now about 50 nonprofits engaged with the receiver in the resurrection of that important school district. The previous 3 administrations, all of whom were indicted, previous 3 administrations did not allow nonprofits in. And Jeff Riley, the receiver there, threw open the doors. And he's got tutoring programs. There's an organization that does recesses. There's a nonprofit focused just on recesses for elementary kids. They do non-competitive games and they stop bullying in its tracks. There are so many things going on around. But 50 nonprofits in a school system as value added. I mean, the budget's still there doing its thing. But then there are all these other things that extend school day, extend success. And this in the context of a rising tide of charter schools as well. So you can feel momentum in education here. Next generation philanthropy. John Payson talked about it a little bit this morning. I don't know whether in previous generations or way back in the 20th century, people in their 30s were lightly involved in nonprofits or not. They're probably heavily involved in a very few. But we're at a point now where we can't afford that. So the Essex County Community Foundation Board is debating a question about whether we as a county should have a goal to have somebody under 40 on every board in the county, 2,500 boards. That's another thing like Children's Hospital. We'll never get to that goal, but why not try? Wouldn't that be cool? I want your board to be younger. I want to be younger. Maybe it rubs off if we hang around with the next generation on these boards. We certainly need to. Just a quickie on ECCF now and its growth. We're, depending upon how the market does on Monday, we're at about $27 million in assets and approaching 150 new funds, 150 funds, which collectively put about $4 million in gifts each year into nonprofit life worldwide. The majority of that is here. And you think, whoa, an Essex County Community Foundation ought to be giving in Essex County, but those donors who create those funds might be graduates of some community college in Palo Alto, and they might send an alumni gift there. You know, an interesting statistic, increasingly donors want to be anonymous, especially significant donors, unless they're giving to alma mater, and then they want their name in lights. I know you do too. You don't have to chuckle. I know everybody thinks that way. So about 60 to 70% of the money that's granted out from ECCF each year goes to organizations here. Those are decisions made by these 150 donor advisors. And their engagement with you is what drives that bus. One other statistic that's kind of interesting just for the moment here is that if you add up the years of board experience on the ECCF board, which has really gotten to be wonderfully strong, and I'm really, really proud of them, and of the staff, we have over 500 years of experience on boards, and that's why we desperately want next generation people, because that's way too many years. This is really serious stuff. We can joke about it. And we obviously have fun with it because we're willing to spend a gloomy Saturday doing this together. But you stop and think about where we would be. We as families, we as a community, we as a county, without all of us doing these things. I'm saying you doing this, without all of us doing these things. It is so important. So when you're talking with people about joining your board, do it with a glad heart, do it with a spring in your step, do it arm in arm and say, you really should be doing this, it's good stuff. Not, oh my gosh, we really need another board member, I hope you'll join us. No. This is important, Every organization in this room saves lives. You know, the organizations that teach little kids to read, they're two relatively new organizations on the south shore of Essex County, the west end of the North Shore, who are groups of grandparents who read to little kids, 3- and 4-year-olds. We know that if you read to a little kid at that age, they're more likely to read on their own on time in kindergarten and elementary school. When they read on time, they do well in school. When they do well in school, they enjoy it. And when they enjoy it, they stick with it. And sociologist after sociologist, and educator after educator knows that when you read to little kids in those situations, in families that don't have a tradition of education or books in the house or value of learning, when you read to a little kid like that, they are 8 times more likely to graduate from high school. Reading to little kids saves lives. Because when you graduate from high school, that means you've avoided gangs, you've avoided teenage pregnancy, you've avoided all those things that put that steel ceiling over your head, not just glass ceiling. Every organization in this room is saving lives somehow. Thank you. Go to class.